I was eager to listen to this story, to meet her, the person who can coexist in two worlds. She makes 2 cups of tea for both of us, and I'm ready to listen. Cigarette smoke flows in a thin stream, gradually filling the room, and I kinda like the smell of it. She looks confused, but at the same time, extremely concentrated, as if she wants to relax but doesn't allow herself to do so. I don't know where this story is going to lead me. All I know for now is that it all starts with a dead girl. The medium was created by a Polish studio called Bloober Team. This team started to gain popularity after their experiments with the horror genre. Probably the first game that brought them relative fame was Layers of Fear. Yes, it wasn't their first game, but it definitely caught the attention of many players, especially after Silent Hills got cancelled. And if that was a certain exercise with the form and test of the pen in the genre, then their Observer was a much more polished, structured and developed game in all aspects. And although their Layers of Fear 2 and Blair Witch were not particularly remarkable from my point of view, Bloober Team still showed everyone that they want to work with this genre and experiment with it. The main gimmick and selling point of the medium was the ability of the protagonist to exist in 2 realities, our world and a supernatural one. Bloober Team had this concept already in 2012 when the game was supposed to be released on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Wii U. If you've already played this game, you understand that it is a challenge even with current technologies, and at that time it was simply impossible. One more thing that probably caught your attention was such people as Akira Yamaoka as a music composer of the supernatural world, Mary Elizabeth McGlean as a singer, and Troy Baker as a voice actor. Another composer, Arkadiusz Rejkowski, was mostly responsible for music in the real world. More than that, this game is Xbox and PC exclusive. Well, my attention was definitely caught after all those facts. After seeing some gameplay videos and presentations, many people hurried to compare this game with old Silent Hill games. But not all that has a semi-fixed camera is Silent Hill. Since I've been waiting for this game for a very long time, I really want to talk about it. To tell you the truth, I tried to structure this text more smoothly, but I struggled to do it. So this review will be as a stream of mind, and I hope you don't mind it, especially when we're talking about the game where 2 worlds are presented to you at the same time. The main protagonist is Marianne, who can exist in 2 worlds simultaneously. It's not like she's able to control this condition consciously. It just happens that the world splits.
The split would come and go. If a place had a story to tell, well, I guess I was there to listen.
The setting is set in post-communism Poland in the 1990s, and I do love how developers brought some polished flavor into the game. This apartment illustrates that time perfectly. I understand that there are studios out there that recreate whole eras, but considering that Bloober Team is a relatively small team, I really appreciate the level of detail and love towards their own heritage and culture. In the Evil Within 2 analysis, I mentioned Zdzisław Beksinski as a possible reference, but if in that game developers might take inspiration from his rare photos, in this game his paintings were a source of inspiration for the supernatural world, according to the developers themselves. The supernatural world tends towards orange tones, there are mushroom growths, thin objects and lines. All in all, if you find some works of this painter and compare them to what you see in the game, you'll definitely be amazed how well Bloober Team managed to transfer a vision of this author into the game. We meet Marianne in the apartment where she spent her childhood with her stepfather, who has recently passed away. On his example, we'll get familiar with the controls and enter the supernatural world for the first time. I like how people in the supernatural world are presented, those masks, I mean. Not only does it look stylish and make everyone equal in front of death, but it also allowed Bloober Team to save resources while working on the animations. Very creative. Right after these events, A certain Thomas calls and says that he knows about Marianne's powers and that he wants to meet her at the Neva Workers' Resort. This resort was shuttered years ago after the massacre. Of course, Marianne agrees to follow the instructions of a completely unknown man and goes God knows where without any source of light or weapon. Not the smartest decision, of course, but if we're talking about the horror genre, then I'm ready to write off some of the stupid actions of the heroes on the peculiarity of the genre. Marianne arrives in Neva and enters the first large area in the game. After playing the game, I would call it a Siberia in horror entourage, with similar puzzles, some action, and stealth segments. And just like in many puzzle adventures, the medium has a couple of, let's say, distinctive features of the genre. Just look at this setup: an abandoned building in the woods that is literally made from glass without a single living man around. No, without a single living soul around. And instead of picking a random stone, break any of those windows and enter, we have to find a way to open the door. To do this, we need to wander around, find a conveniently broken car, open a trunk, find a conveniently placed screwdriver, and open the door. I should probably be grateful to whoever left this car with a screwdriver, otherwise the game would end right there. To tell you the truth, I thought that I had to do something else with this tool because I've never seen anyone opening a door with a screwdriver, but thankfully it's probably the only illogic puzzle in the game, or such postcards, aka notes, that are conveniently placed on benches in the woods and that don't soften under the rain. Neva is the place where we're going to spend a vast majority of the time and meet some new characters, such as Sadness, for example. As you've probably guessed, the world here may be split. However, most of the time we'll be playing in one world. The role of the supernatural world remains slightly unclear to me. This is a spirit world, I get it, but in this universe objects may contain memories and emotions. Extremely strong emotions may even transform into physical objects.
This thing isn't a razor, it's guilt, shame, regret.
At the same time, we'll be able to enter other people's minds and their representation in the supernatural world, something like palaces from Persona 5. So, although this supernatural world looks very interesting, it's hard for me to tell what this world really is. Is it a limbo where Marianne can help souls reach the other side? Why do some souls like her stepfather need such help in the first place? Is it just a parallel world where our souls live? If this is the place where people's souls live, why is it so frightening? Or is it just because of the massacre? But at the beginning of the game, the world of Marianne's stepfather looks just like Neva's. Can other souls in the spirit world use such things as spirit wells? What do ordinary people feel when they come to Neva? These questions will never be answered. Anyway, Marianne possesses some powers she can use in the supernatural world. First and foremost, she can use already mentioned objects of power to charge herself with energy. In the supernatural world, she can charge an electrical panel that may not be working in the real world.
Oh, so that worked. Good for you, Marianne.
Create a shield that can protect her from hordes of butterflies. She may also leave her real body and perform actions only in her supernatural body for a short period of time. Sort of out-of-body experience. What I do love in games is how developers manage to implement the interface into the game, and in the medium, when Marianne takes damage, the screen fades, and the amount of spiritual power is displayed on her hand. Very neat and minimalistic if you ask me. In both worlds, we may collect and combine items. For some reason, developers had to keep only the silhouettes of the items, but they overcame this limitation by using the shapes to distinguish them from each other. While being in two worlds simultaneously, Marianne is unable to go through a door if it is blocked or locked in one of the worlds. At some point, Marianne will learn to leap between worlds through mirrors, and this ability leaves me in an easy confusion. Let me tell one thing, the optimization in this game is far from perfect. And I understand the reason. Not only is this the first next-gen game, but it's fair to say that a system has to render 2 games at a time. So in my opinion, developers had to leave either the system with 2 worlds at the same time, or the system from Silent Hill Origins or Constantine game, when the protagonists could travel between worlds. I can say the same thing about the cutscenes. Yes, on the one hand we can observe the same event from different angles, on the other hand, the interesting stuff happens only in one world. So seeing how Marianne is pushing air in the real world not only feels awkward, but it also eats the resources of your system. Speaking about Silent Hill, I don't know if there were any direct references, but I found some similarities. An abandoned resort near the lake with a little girl in it. Silent Hill 2. Even one cutscene looks very familiar. The flashlight looks similar to the ones used in Silent Hill. Already mentioned ability to travel between worlds through mirrors was present in Silent Hill Origins. It's not a bad thing at all, it's just cool to see some references. Most parts of action and stealth are connected with the main monster of the game, the Maw, and the stealth around this creature feels rather awkward. Besides, Marianne cannot run. Well, she can, but I just can't call it running. It's not quite obvious when the Maw can see us or not. Yes, we can turn on the intuition that allows us not only to light up the monster, but also helps us to find interesting, hidden stuff on the levels. Listen to echoes of some items.
I'm here. No, there's definitely something. Trust me, you made the right call sending me.
But it still doesn't help much since the monster is barely visible. Apparently the developers knew about this and added arrow that helps to count the distance between you and the Maw. It's not obvious how far the Maw can hear us. Besides that, you can make Marianne hold her breath, but I haven't found any indicator about how much she can hold on. Sometimes it's quite challenging to see the destination point because of the half-fixed camera. The story of the medium is probably the thing that's going to keep you invested. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but if the beginning of the game looks like a story about restless souls, then later it adds more and more elements, making it more interesting to dive in, and more personal to the protagonist than I could imagine. For me, the story kept me invested in the game. It doesn't pretend to be more complicated or deeper than it really is. Every cutscene and almost every dialogue gives us new information about the story, and I appreciate this.
So, that's how you found him?
Yes, he was just lying there.
Mr. Rekovich?
I'm sorry. He was a friend. I just need a moment.
That's not true, Thomas. You thought he deserved it.
Although this game has some objective flaws, I'm really glad I spent time in this game. The Neva Sanatorium is not the most common place to tell a story, and it was also interesting to wander and explore it from a visual perspective. Some puzzles may surprise you, and the idea of 2 worlds being loaded simultaneously may look good on paper, but I wish there were more implementations of this feature. Otherwise, the performance doesn't seem like a good trade for a feature that could be erased almost completely. Marianne could still jump between worlds on the player's own will, or jump between worlds through mirrors. Sometimes it feels like the game wants to be artificially longer than it is, by limiting players' ability to run and showing almost the same sequences over and over again. But still, I'm glad that Bloober Team still experiments with the genre and tries to implement new ideas. I struggle to recommend this game at full price, but if you got interested at least a bit, I would definitely recommend you to try it out. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the next videos.
It all ends.